Yes. Okay. So, yes, here we go again. Um, this is more about the witch story, and how it all ties into, shit like shadow integration, shadow archetypes, and the movie The Matrix. So I want to go into cypher, like really go into the cypher incident, the psychopath cypher incident. So I guess I really want to let's just start here. Okay. So you got all these people that are plugged into the Matrix, okay? And Morpheus shows Neo this in one of those programs. I can't remember what the program is called. But where Morpheus and Neo are walking in downtown Gotham, and Morpheus is telling Neo, "Look, you see all these people? And remember, there's just masses and hordes of people walking all throughout Gotham and shit." And Morpheus is like, "These are the fucking people that we are trying to unplug, and they will fight to defend the system that we're trying to unplug them from. So they will perceive us as the enemy, even though we're trying to free them. They don't even know they're fucking slaves," okay? Okay, so now consider all these people that are plugged in, that Morpheus is explaining to Neo. All these masses of people that are all plugged in. Okay, so now think of it this way. All these people that are plugged in, okay, are they having an experience like Morpheus or the Nebuchadnezzar crew? Are they having any experience like that? No. The obvious answer is no. All those people that are plugged in, they're all having the same experience that Neo was having before he found Morpheus, where Neo just goes to his job, and it's like totally flat affect, despondence. Everything is just like, duh. And his boss is lecturing him about being late for work. And then he sits at his desk and stares blankly at a computer screen that by all appearances is a blank computer screen, and he's just sitting there, or like, the whole thing, like when he's at home, he doesn't look happy. All he's doing is searching for Morpheus. And then when the door knocks and he answers the door, and there's like hot chicks and they're all ready to go party, does Neo look like he's excited to see him? No, not at all. He wants him out of his fucking hair. Here's your shit, go away. Like, he don't want the experience of the plugged in person is that of purely mundane. Everything is just automaton. Okay, so all these people that are plugged in, they're not going to have a cypher incident type experience where somebody just goes, because they're so blind to everything. They wouldn't know a cypher if cypher fucking bit them on the ass. They wouldn't. All those masses of people, they're not red pilled. They're not unplugged. So they're not going to be having some big event happen to them. The reason like when I'm describing the event, I'm like living with this psycho chick who is like a fucking, a shapeshifter, where I don't know that she is who she is. I don't know she's a psychopath. I don't know that she joined the Illuminati and is a fucking, I don't know all this, right? But I find out, okay? Whereas a person who is totally completely jacked into the system, where they're all about the shekels, everything is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and they love what they do. They take selfies of themselves and how great they're doing in life. I have this great computer programmer job. I work at this tall high-rise building. Look at my nice pad. posting it all on Instagram. They're all about all this. This is all great to them. They want their ego to be stroked. Like, wow, yeah, that's so great. You're a computer programmer. You work in that tall high-rise building. Wow, man, you have a really nice plate. They're all about the matrix. Everything they'll fight to defend this system because they love it. They're proud of everything they do. They never question anything. And so they're totally blind. They wouldn't know. It's like, think of it like a guy who's totally simped and totally cucked to his wife. Well, he never questions her. He's, okay, darling, what can I do for you today? It's never like, what is going on here, right? And so that type of person will never have an experience like I had, because they won't even question who they're sleeping with. Not only will they not question it, they'll be like, making sure that their wife is doing well, and that's a simp and a cuck, and so and so these people, they'll never have the experience that I had with this witch, because they're so blind. They would never see it if it was happening. They would never see any clues and like start catching on, and so going back to the cypher incident, again, why wasn't Morpheus questioned when Cypher pulled the Judas kiss? Why wasn't Morpheus's decision making questioned? Because it was Morpheus that allowed Cypher to be on the Nebuchadnezzar crew, just like I allowed this psycho bitch to be in my Nebuchadnezzar, to join my Nebuchadnezzar crew. It's the same fucking thing. And and people could, I suppose, relate on some level where I've had people in my life that I allowed in my sphere, and then they kind of fucked me over. But did they burn your place down? Did they put death threats out on you? Did they try to frame you for murder? Did they basically like try to kill you and all this shit? Like, see, that's what I mean. This is like an insane event. And on top of the whole thing, I have made it a very conscientious practice to keep those people out of my life. So the shape-shifting that this woman was able to achieve was an advanced level of shape-shifting. This wasn't just your typical, like, somebody who's, this is like advanced levels of shape-shifting with this psychopath that I was basically, for lack of a better word, was my wife. I mean, we were basically married and everything, but on paper, and so it's the sheeple mentality that would look at the story that this witch story and say, oh, well, you're just stupid. You must be stupid to have mixed in with this girl. You must not have been awake. You're still like, and all this, like, and again, like, when I'm talking about this, like 90% or more of any feedback I get from others is always that, which I call dark, which I use the term dark empathy, where they're not, it's just a narcissistic kind of trait to just automatically assume that, oh, well, if Morpheus got mixed in with Cypher, that must mean that Morpheus was stupid. He just doesn't know what's going on and shit. And it's, and so this is like super, super crazy. And that's another thing, is jealousy. Like, when I had this happen to me, and that's another thing that is triggered by people when they hear my story. They get jealous because their whole life they've never seen anything like it. They've never seen a shapeshifter, a demon possessed fucking witch involved in a Todd Mahdi death cult, and they've never seen it. They've only heard stories about it on the internet and this and that. And so when they hear me talking about it, they get jealous. They're like, no, fuck this guy, he's just trying to be the next internet superstar, like my favorite internet influencer. He's just some fake fraud, They get mad and jealous, and it triggers all these emotions because they can't believe. They don't want to believe, because again, going back to the thing you need to know about the truth, there's what people want to hear, there's what people want to believe, there's everything else, then there's the truth. So if what I'm saying is true, it's what I am acting as a mirror to them, because when I'm fleshing out this crazy witch story, it's a mirror to them, because when it reflects back on them as to their life. Well, what is their life like in contrast to mine? Well, theirs is just a mundane life where they're just pulling levers and pushing buttons, and they're not encountering a fucking demon-possessed psychopathic fucking witch, Illuminati witch. They're not experiencing any of this in real life. They're just hearing about it on the internet. There all these internet influencers are talking about it on the internet. They're not actually experiencing it for themselves. And this is what all these people that are plugged into the matrix, they're not experiencing the desert of the real. They're all still living in a dream world, And they're like if another good movie, of course you've probably seen and heard referenced, is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is how, dude, if you are not familiar with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it is a great analogy of all this, where all the people whose bodies have been invaded, they're all like straight up automatons. They're totally NPC, and they all just walk around like robots. And if you haven't been invaded by the body snatchers, you have to pretend like you're invaded like everyone else. But as soon as they detect any hint of actual real human characteristics, all those invaded people whose bodies have been invaded by the body snatchers, they all like freak out, and they all just like dogpile the person who hasn't been invaded, because misery loves company. It's like, there's one that we got to get him, and they all fucking attack him and shit. This, and again, going back to Morpheus explaining, these people will fight to defend the very thing that we're trying to unplug them from. They will defend their slavery, and they will fight us. We are perceived by them as their enemy when we are trying to free them from their slavery. They don't even know who their enemy is. And so I get this constantly, where it's like, ever since this happened to me 2 years ago, that's the NPC response is that, oh, it must have been me, that I must have been, I made all these stupid decisions, and that's how I ended up getting with her, or that I must have done something to her to get her to fucking, burn my shit down and put death threats out on me and do all this insane fucking, it must be because I was actually the bad guy. And that's another thing. People are so programmed that women are innocent, Women are, dude, shit, bro. And like I was saying in my previous video last night, if I were to just do a fucking movie of this and not tell anybody that it's my story, and not tell anybody that it's a true story, and do a good job with like good actors, good script writing, and just as accurate as possible as to what I experienced, the audience's response when the audience watched it, they would hate this chick. All the audience would hate her. They would be like, fuck this bitch. She is a fucking evil fucking cunt. Like, they would hate her, dude. And they would be like, you watch movies where you get invested in the characters where you're like, fuck that. Where you hate the protagonist or you hate the antagonist and you want to see the antagonist go down, and you start rooting for the protagonist where you're like, I hope that Neo fucking, pushes Agent Smith's shit in, dude. I really hope, come on, fucking, and so the audience would be rooting for the character that is me, and be like, dude, I hope he fucks this chick up. Like, that is exactly the way an audience would respond to if this story were presented to him in a movie format where there was no, it didn't say this is based on a true story, and it was completely detached from me, where nobody knew it was me, and stuff. Dude, I'm telling you, the audience would fucking be fucking like pissed at this bitch. They'd want to see this bitch go down. And they'd be like hoping, on the edge of their seat that I fuck this bitch up and shit, dude. And yeah, the whole thing about Cypher, and like I was saying, Cypher is a representation of he glitched out. You got to admit, the guy glitched out. What went wrong with Cypher? And in the if you use the terms and the kind of you apply the elements of archetype, Jungian archetype, to Cypher, he allowed his evil self to be the to take the wheel. He allowed the evil self in him to just give in and take control of Cypher. That's the shadow archetype. And shadow integration is all about keeping the shadow from overcoming a person. Because you're never going to get rid of the shadow archetype. It will always exist. And so since it will always exist and it's always going to be there, that's why it's called shadow integration, is like learning to accept that the shadow exists within me, and learning to act and respond accordingly to the shadow archetype that's in me. And the shadow archetype gets really interesting. Maybe I'll go into some of this. And again, it's not like I'm some expert or anything. I'm just talking about, because it's important. This is like important shit, dude. This is all about red pill and unplugging and awake versus sheeple and all this shit. It's all this. It's all this. Like, a person that isn't aware of their shadow archetype is a sleeper, dude. They're asleep. They're not really aware of what's going on in themselves or around them. And the less aware a person is of the evil within them, the more likely it is that the evil will take control of them. Like, they will just give in and allow the evil to be the driving force in their life. And then I mean, it can get bad where you could, any of us could allow that to happen and become a serial killer ourselves. And we don't want to be that, right? We don't want to be like these Bill Gates and these Klaus Schwabs and all these people that we're opposed to and we're against. We don't want to be a Freemason, and we don't want to be all this shit. The principles that we live by, and the moral compass that we live by is to not be like them, and that we have to stand against that shit. Well, the shadow archetype is the thing that allows, where a person gives into their shadow archetype to become a Freemason, to join the Illuminati, to be these things. And that's what Cypher gave in and said, fuck it, I'm just gonna go, rat the Nebuchadnezzar out to the agents in exchange for, a comfortable life. And so, like, this is all what this whole thing is all about, and like going back to integrating the shadow. So, if a person can't even acknowledge that they have the potential to be a Cypher and to be like a psychopath and shit, if they're not even acknowledging that within them, then they're a potential agent. Just like when Morpheus said, look at all these people. If you're not one of us, you're one of them, and all these people are potential agents. Any one of these people could be a fucking agent. And that's the thing, see? If a person isn't even aware, and not only unaware, but chooses to ignore the shadow archetype within them, they're a potential agent. They're a potential cypher. Dude, you see how the shadow integration is like so key to this whole thing about the matrix and how all this works, and the prison for your mind. Like the shadow archetype is the prison. If one allows the shadow archetype to be the dominant thing in their dominant force in their own life, then they are a slave. And if they're not aware that they're a slave to the shadow. If they're hiding from their own shadow and they're avoiding their own shadow, they're a slave to it. That's what dictates their life, and that's what being plugged in is living in a dream world, is not accepting reality for what it is and accepting delusion as opposed to reality. Anyways, so this is all kind of where I'm going. So the cypher incident, that's what happened to me. That's what it was. It was a cypher incident. And like, I'm not trying to say I'm perfect or that I'm Morpheus or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, who is? Are you Morpheus? Are you Neo? Are you one of these grand archetype characters depicted in the movie The Matrix? Well, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Who the fuck am I to say? But who the fucker is anybody to say that about me either? And when I'm telling this story, everybody's knee-jerk reaction is that, oh, I must be... It's because I'm not awake. That's how that happened to me with this psycho witch. But then look at their life. Have they ever had this happen? Well, no. And that's because, is that because they're red-pilled, or because they're so jacked into the matrix that nothing ever happens to them, because all that happens is they go to work and pull the lever, just like Neo did before he found Morpheus. I just go to work and I just pull this lever and push this button, See, I'm grateful that what happened to me happened, because that's a sign that I'm over the target. And that's what I was saying, like, the more a person does shadow integration and the more their light shines, the more potential they're going to be faced with bigger demons, because demons want to shut that light down. And the more a person's light, the brighter a person's light is, the bigger the demon is going to be required to snuff that light out. And so, and so when that happened to me, it was like I knew I was over the target. I'm doing something right. There's some interview with Denzel Washington where he points that out, where he says, dude, the people who are letting their light shine are the ones that the demons are coming after, not the people and see, that's what I'm saying. That's what, and again, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back or qualify myself as anything. It's just, dude, if a person is a bright light, demons are going to be coming after them more so than a person who isn't really doing anything. They're just plugged in a lever puller and a button pusher. The demons don't really care about them, because that person is doing exactly what the demon wants. It's the people that aren't pulling the levers and pushing the buttons that the demons are going to go after, aggressively go after. And so when this happened to me, it was like I knew I was over the target, dude. Like, I knew that, like, this is because, because I'm doing something that the demons don't like, and that means I'm doing something right, And so the person who never has this shit happen to them, they can pat themselves on the back and act like, well, oh yeah, the reason that doesn't happen to me is because I'm just so much more awake and much more red-pilled, and I'm wearing my They Live sunglasses. That's why it doesn't happen to me. Well, I mean, if you're going to reference all this stuff about red-pilled or being awake and all this shit, well, okay, let's look at They Live. What happened to John Nada from They Live? When he wore the sunglasses, did all of a sudden everything became, rainbows, butterflies, and unicorn farts? No. And by the end of the movie, he fucking dies. He fucking dies at the end of the movie. Hello? Is that because he wasn't living up to the standards of what your typical internet consumer claims is red pilled and awake? That's why John Nada died, because he just wasn't as awake as all these so-called awake people that are all over the internet claiming themselves to be red pilled and awake and all this shit. Like, it's just ridiculous. The whole thing gets so fucking dumb and ridiculous. And I mean, you can obviously, if you're listening to what I'm saying, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know that I'm exactly true and I'm exactly right in what I'm saying. You got so many fake fucking people pretending like they're so awake. And if you were to look at them, the majority of those people, they're all just plugged in. They're the typical plugged in person that Morpheus is trying to show Neo. Look at all these people. And all those people, they'll all fight to defend their own slavery. They will fight you if you and like this chick, what happened with this chick, she came to me out of desperation because she was in a desperate situation and nobody would help her. She was like fucking drowning in the sewers of the desert of the real and came to me for help, just like Neo sought out Morpheus. And when I saw her, I was like, okay. And so I unplugged her, and the process was as grueling and fucking exhaustive as the process that Morpheus and the Nebuchadnezzar crew did, pulling Neo out, unplugging Neo and pulling him up out of all that shit and showing him what's real. It was the exact identical thing. And then the cypher incident, what Cypher did to Morpheus and the Nebuchadnezzar crew, is exactly identical to what this psycho fucking bitch did to me, dude. She's like a female version of Cypher in the movie The Matrix. And you know, maybe I'm the equivalent of Mouse or Tank or Bulldozer, or you know, one of these more you know, less profound characters than Morpheus. I don't know. I'm not trying to proclaim that I'm some this or that. I'm just saying this is what happened to me. This is real life shit. And people that look at these things and go, oh, the reason that happened to you is because you're just kind of a loser. You're not really awake to what's really going on. Well, then why not make that assessment with the movie The Matrix with Morpheus? The reason all that happened with Cypher is because Morpheus just wasn't meeting your standards of what an awake what awake really means, and you know, Morpheus was just kind of, you know, not really up to your standards, and that's why Cypher fucking, you know, that's why, you know, no. As a matter of fact, a person can be doing well, you know, and encounter Cypher incidences, have these events take place. It is not uncommon, and actually part of opening people's eyes is to show that these things are very common. Just like when Morpheus is showing Neo, all these people are potential agents. Well, that's what my Psycho X was, a fucking agent, dude. A fucking shape-shifting fucking agent. Just like Morpheus was trying to caution Neo. Look at all these people. Any one of these people could be an agent. And if you're not one of us, you're one of them. And what happened to Cypher? Cypher ended up being an agent that Morpheus allowed in his Nebuchadnezzar crew. This shit just happens in the real world. It's not, you know. So anyways, the Cypher incident is really key in this witch story. And the reason is because I get dogpiled by masses of fucking dumb fuck automaton NPCs who dogpile me when I'm telling the story and try to accuse me that it must have been something I did wrong. You know, it can't just be that there are actual real shape-shifting psychopaths in the world that just are that are advanced in fucking shape-shifting and can end up being in the Nebuchadnezzar crew and fucking and cause massive damage. It can't just be that actually happens in real life. No, it has to be something that always. And so, yeah, this story, it'll never end. I will constantly be getting dogpiled if and when I ever talk about it, again, I had a channel that had hundreds of subscribers when all this shit went down, and that's exactly what happened. And anytime I ever tried to tell the story for the whole 2 years since it happened on my channels that had hundreds of subscribers, they would all the typical fucking NPC response was always the same. Oh, you must, you need to make sure you're awake. Why did you get involved with this? Like, well, why did Morpheus get involved with Cypher, dude? So just really fucking ranting about that because it's really dumb. And it's a big part of this story is all these dumb NPCs surrounding me everywhere that are going to fight to protect their own slavery. Don't listen to anyone else because whatever. Anyways, what the